Alright guys, how you doing? So I just want to talk a little bit about how to memorize scales, and I'm going to show you the way that I use. I've always used this way, and it might be a little bit unorthodox, but I'll show you why it's useful. So let's say you want to learn a new scale. I'm going to pick the E minor scale, and one way of doing that, of course, is box positions. Now, a box position is useful to identify the intervals that are involved in this scale. But once you've got the idea of what intervals are involved, then move it to one string. So in this case, I'm going to move it to the top E string. Now this is the way I always did it. From there, just identify the sound of that scale on that string. And the key here is actually getting the sound of the scale in your head. This is the important part. Learning shapes is one thing, but it's the sound of the scale you want to get in your head first. Now I'm going to start at the top. So that's the E minor scale, yeah? And go back up the other way. And it's just about identifying the sound of it and getting it in your head. And a box position can sort of distract you a little bit because you're concerning yourself with shapes instead of what interval comes next. And this is getting you used to the distance you need to travel to get the sound of a whole tone, and the distance you need to travel to get the sound of a semitone. And after a while, you'll start to predict how far your finger needs to move to get the sound of a whole tone or a semitone. The next step is to group the scale into threes. And the reason this is really useful is because you're going to start working these 3-note per string patterns that we all use anyway. Essentially, you're going to see that there's 3 shapes that keep repeating. I call these shapes the magic 3 because they work through all of the 7 modes of the major scale, all of the 7 modes of the melodic minor scale, okay? There's this one, which is a whole tone, and a semitone, which is usually played 1st, 3rd, and 4th fingers. Then this one, 1st finger, 2nd finger, and little finger. And then the stretchy one. Okay, usually it's played with the 1st, the 2nd, and the 4th finger, but occasionally some people will use the 3rd finger. A famous example of that, obviously, is Paul Gilbert. So these shapes keep repeating all the way through the scale, and they'll repeat on the other strings as well. So a good way of getting this in your head is to start cycling them, descending and ascending. And you can do as many repetitions as you want, but for sake of ease, do more than one, because then you don't have to change position so many times. So let's do 2, for example. Once you're pretty confident at moving up and down this, and I'm only taking it to the 12th fret as well, by the way, because that's far enough to get the sound of the scale into your head, rather than adding all these frets down here. We'll get to those later. But for now, let's take this to the next step and add the next string below, which is the B string, okay? So now you can just go from here. And even though you're starting on a different note, it doesn't matter, because by now you've got the sound of the scale in your head. So you can start applying it to a different string. And although the finger positions will be different, the shapes that you're using will be the same, because you've still got these magic 3 shapes reoccurring all over the neck. So then the next step, once you've started applying these shapes to other strings, you can start cycling between them like this. And then if you want to, start taking it down below the 12th fret, because the same shapes are going to reoccur here. You just repeat the same thing down here. Okay, then you'll do the same thing for all of the strings. But take it easy on yourself. When you first start doing this, just give yourself the goal of getting from your highest fret, whether it be the 24th fret or the 23rd or 22nd, down to the 12th fret. Yeah, and just get the sound of the scale in your head, grouping it into 3, and then maybe the next day try and see if you can involve the B string as well, yeah? And then do that for a few days until you really feel confident with how the scale sounds, and that you can match the sound of the scale in your head with the actual 3-note per string shapes, because what you're doing is you're marrying those two together. You're getting the sound with the shapes involved, okay? So you're not just learning box positions by rotor, you're actually getting a direct connection between the sound of the scale in your head and the movement of your fingers. Now, when it comes to the harmonic minor scale and all the modes of the harmonic minor scale, these 3-note per string shapes, they all apply, these magic 3. But with the harmonic minor modes, you're going to get 2 different shapes because of the distance between the 6th and the 7th interval. So in the harmonic minor mode, you've got this shape. Yeah, and what that is, you've got a semitone followed by a whole tone and a half. Now, we don't have that distance, a whole tone and a half, in the 7 modes of the major scale, but we do have it in the harmonic minor modes. So you're going to get 2 different finger positions here. You're going to get this one, which is nearly always played with 1st, 2nd and 4th finger. And then as you move up 1 position, you're going to be playing the next one, which is the 1st finger, the ring finger, and then the 4th finger again. So you've got these shapes. So they're just a bit of an extra stretch for your fingers, okay? And you might find them a bit awkward to start with. But either side of those shapes, you get back to the usual. You get back to the normal 3-note per string shapes that we've already looked at. So you've got the magic 3 plus 2, so that gives you 5 different shapes for the harmonic minor modes. Now you know the best way of getting the sound of a scale in your head, and then how to apply it to 3-note per string patterns. And once you've got those 3-note per string patterns, they will apply to all of the modes, and that really is the way to start unlocking the fretboard. Like I said, a bit unorthodox, but I've used this method my whole life and it works for me. It hasn't done me any harm. So give it a go, it might work for you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.